All right, so number 6, why you should have the interview for college. It's so important to demonstrate those interpersonal skills. At schools that have interviews, you gotta take that chance, man. You gotta take the chance to go and have the interview if they offer you one. Now, not all schools have interviews, and some schools that have interviews won't offer you one. But if you get the chance, I think you absolutely should go, because top schools, like I said, it's not just the test scores. It's about your personality and like how you're able to talk to people and converse like in an intelligent way. Now, my school, William & Mary, we just adopted interviews like 2 years ago. And before that, I promise you, you can tell a difference, I kid you not, of the people that they accept now. Because before it was like, they would just accept people without interviewing them, and we had these like super, super awkward people, okay? People who just like, the people that like walk around the hall like with their head down, like have like 50 books in their hand, and they're just like, and they just run into people, and like if you talk to them, they're like, hello, okay, I have to go, bye. All right, we have a lot of those people, right? But once we started doing interviews at William & Mary, we started like getting more interpersonally skilled people, and that's why I think it's so important to do the interviews. And if you don't, I think that it can really hurt you. For example, in my case, I applied to Dartmouth, but by the time like interviews came around, I realized I didn't want to go there, mostly because it was kind of in the middle of nowhere and it just didn't sound good to me. So they offered me an interview, but I was like, you know what, I don't want to go here. I'm not going to take the interview. So needless to say, I didn't get in. That being said, I did get in to another Ivy League school. So I feel like I was at that caliber, but I didn't take the interview. So I think that's just an example of how that's really important. Now, what is really important about the interview? How I don't know, have any of you guys ever interviewed for like a job or something like that? Okay, so some people have done some interviews. I'll concentrate in this area of the room. Now, an interview, let's talk about the college interview. What's really important? Okay, I think it's really important to practice and prepare. Let me give you 2 examples from my life. So a few years ago, I got this email. This story is going to sound ridiculous, true story. I got this email from the White House. And they're like, hi, I work for the White House and I want to talk to you. Because I'm considering putting you on this like presidential appointment for a committee, and I was like, I don't know what was going through my mind, but I was just like, oh yeah, I'll probably get that. Yeah, all right, sweet. I'll just pick up the phone when she calls me and talk to her. So I didn't prepare at all. Didn't think about what she'd ask me. Didn't think of good answers. And it turns out the committee was like about encouraging people to volunteer. And she's like, so what volunteer work have you done? And I was like, I don't know. I'm pretty nice to people. Because it was like, I've done tons of volunteer work, but I hadn't thought through it, I hadn't prepared, and so that just wasn't in the forefront of my mind. Now contrast that, another example, I had an interview, I applied for this contest at American Eagle last year, the clothing store, right, American Eagle? So they had, it was crazy, they had 23,000 people apply, and they chose 12 finalists and flew us to their headquarters in Pittsburgh. So I'm one of the 12 finalists. And so I had learned my lesson at this point from the interview that I had at the White House. I knew I was going to have an interview there. I went in totally prepared. I thought through every possible question they could ask me. I had stories ready to answer the questions instead of just telling why I'm this. I give an example of how I'm this. And I just did I read all of their their annual reports. Companies publish annual reports every year that's about what the company's been doing. I could tell you about their stock price from 5 years ago, the clothing lines they had in the late 90s. I'm not trying to say that you should always do this, but I was way over prepared. But that was fine. None of that stuff really came up in the interview, but the fact was that if it had, I would have been ready. So I think that to me is an example of when you go into an interview, being prepared. Being in the college case, some examples of what that means is, with American Eagle, I want to know about American Eagle. When you go to apply and you go to interview at your college, you should know about that college. Because chances are good they're going to ask you in an interview, why do you want to come to our school? And you shouldn't say, well, I'm trying to go to college. And if I get in, I might come to this school. I'd consider it. No, you got to know specific things about this school, what makes it unique, and what makes you uniquely suited for the school. Some of the other things, you got to think about the possible questions. You should do a mock interview if possible. Some of you guys said you've interviewed for stuff before, but a lot of you, I know for me, I think, it was one of the first times I would be interviewing stuff was when I was applying to college. So if you have the chance, practice interviewing with a parent or with your college admissions counselor. I'm sure we'd be happy to do that with you. You should be ready with several stories. You don't have to have a million stories memorized, but just think, here's a couple examples of something when I was really passionate about this, and so I started this club at my school, and tell about that story, because people latch on to stories. You gotta be passionate, you gotta show that you're enthusiastic, and you got to be able to demonstrate why you want to go to that school.